green village lived a hard-working farmer named Rao, who owned two animals with very different personalities and destinies. One was a strong, diligent ox, always ready for heavy labor, while the other was a relaxed donkey who loved leisure. Under the scorching sun, the ox pulled the heavy plow, sweat glistening on his skin, muscles straining with every difficult step. Meanwhile, the donkey carried only light loads and spent most of his time grazing peacefully under the cool, refreshing shade trees. The ox looked over at his companion with tired eyes, feeling a deep sense of injustice growing within his weary heart. As the sun began to set, the farmer guided the stumbling ox back to the barn, his body aching from work. Inside the stable, the ox collapsed onto the dry straw, letting out a long, heavy sigh that echoed through the room. The donkey stopped chewing his dinner and looked at his friend, wondering why the strong giant was so incredibly unhappy tonight. That evening inside the wooden stable, the exhausted ox looked at the fresh donkey and finally voiced his deep, burning frustration. The donkey stepped closer and whispered a cunning plan, suggesting that hard work was foolish when one could simply pretend instead. He told the ox to pretend to be sick, to refuse food and water, so the farmer would let him rest. When the morning sun rose, Rao entered the stable with his heavy yoke, expecting to start another productive day of farming. However, he found the ox lying on the ground, groaning loudly in pretend pain, leaving his breakfast completely untouched and cold. The farmer examined his beast with a worried frown, believing the act and thinking his strong worker had truly fallen ill. He sighed deeply, realizing he could not plow the fields today, and turned his attention to the donkey standing nearby. With no other choice, the farmer placed the heavy yoke on the donkey, forcing him to do the ox's work. Left alone in the cool stable, the ox felt a surge of victory, believing he had outsmarted his master successfully. Days turned into a week, and the ox grew accustomed to the idleness, refusing to return to his duties entirely. Rao watched the lazy animal and realized that a beast unwilling to work was of no value to his farm. One afternoon, a stranger with a cold stare and a leather apron arrived at the farm to speak with Rao. They struck a deal quickly, and money changed hands while the ox watched, unaware that his fate had just been sealed. The stranger walked into the stable and tied a strong rope around the ox, pulling him up from his rest. As he was led away, the ox looked back at his friend, who stood silently with eyes full of deep regret. The foolish ox walked willingly, dreaming of a new owner who would let him sleep and eat all day long. But as they passed through the market, the sights and smells of the butcher shops made his heart pound with fear. The butcher pulled him toward a dark building, and suddenly, the horrifying truth of his destination became clear to the ox. Tears filled his eyes as he remembered the safe days of hard work that he had foolishly thrown away for comfort. He realized too late that his value lay in his labor, and without it, he was nothing but merchandise for sale. Back at the farm, the donkey was now forced to do all the heavy work alone, suffering for his bad advice. The farm continued to operate, but the lesson of the lost ox remained heavy in the air for everyone to see. Comfort can silently destroy a life, while the challenges we face are often what keep us safe and truly valuable. Avoiding responsibility might bring temporary relief, but it eventually strips away our dignity and leaves us vulnerable to the world. Honest effort is not just a burden. It is the shield that protects our position and secures our future in life. Never trade your long-term value for short-term ease, because the price of laziness is often far higher than we imagine. Let us cherish our responsibilities and find joy in our efforts, for that is where true meaning and safety reside. Thank you for watching the Life Tales. Subscribe for more stories of wisdom, and see you in the next video.